have had my sip of water, and I had to get myself into this emotional bit, because I think when you start replaying the stories of where you are coming from, you really get to sit down and replay entirely your whole life story. So the moment you actually get to sit like I am sitting now and replaying my entire story, there are of course a lot of emotions involved. I had to drink water. So thank you and welcome back. And I think I stopped at the bit where I was talking about my high school life. And being that I was out of school for Form 3 second term to Form 4, when my mom did the fundraising and the friends could not come through because they knew my dad had money because of how he was behaving outside. Like I mentioned, he had parties. He was the one who was buying liquor for his friends. And back then, mind you, with good money, you drank very good liquor. It was not this cheap stuff, easy. I think they call them keg and those things. No, my dad drank good booze. Good. When he had money, he drank really good booze. So nobody helped us. So my mom didn't raise money for my big brother to go to school or for me to go back to school. The match, I think she raised about 4,500 shillings. In that time, I had moved from a boarding school to a day school because my mom could not afford to have 6 kids in school, take care of our bills, and we stayed in boarding school. No, so we moved from a boarding school to a day school that was a walking distance from our house. And I'm telling you, that was humiliating, by the way. That was very humiliating. I went to a really good school in Murang'a. And I'm telling you, I went to Ruchu High School. And for those of you who know that school, that was a really good school. I'm telling you, now coming from that school and coming to a day school I'm telling you, sometimes you tell people where you finished. I tell people where I finished my high school, and they're like, where is that school? By then that school does not exist anymore. They closed down. So it was very tough. The transitioning was very tough, and it was even tougher because I could not afford to stay in school. So my mom raised about 4,500. Back then I remember registering for KCSE was 4,000 shillings. I remember very well because I'm the one who went to pay. And my mom gave me 4,000 bob, and she was like, you can't stay in school. You take this 4,500. That is what she got from her friends. I think she had about 1,500 because I think I got 6,000 shillings. And I went to our principal, and the owner of the school was Hindu. And he was very nice. He was a very good Hindu. He was very understanding, but very tough. And I went and I told him, we went with my mom, this is what we have, but 4,000 shillings can only cover for registration for KCSE, because I had to at least have a certificate. That was the look my mom had. At least she needs a certificate for high school. And the 2,000 only took me a few weeks to stay in school. And that is how I ended up being home. And being home was tough. You don't want to be home and your people are in school, your friends are in school. I would have people coming there. I have friends from Ruchu High back then who knew our home, and they will come when school closes, and they're like, so where do you go to school? Did you transfer? By the way, mind you, I never went back to the boarding school to pick anything. I don't know what they did with my stuff. Nothing. I picked nothing back at high school. Everything that was in boarding, my mattresses, everything else, everything was left. I picked nothing. I could not. The shame was going back to pick my things and knowing that I'm bringing them back home. We didn't even have fare, by the way. The transport from Kiambu to Murang'a, we didn't have it. So I never went for my stuff, and I had to stay home. I remember in that season, I finished high school in 2004. In that season of 2003 and 2004, before I did my KCSE, remember I'm the firstborn of the girls. And I'm the second-born. And when you are the firstborn of girls and the second-born, typically you are like the firstborn. The firstborn brother ceases to be firstborn. You take on every responsibility that the firstborn should have. It's all put on you. And so I had to help my mom take care of my siblings. I remember I would go wash clothes for people, and some guys would look at me and they're like, so you just become my wife. You're washing clothes for single men. And now, of course, word has spread. We no longer have money. My dad has squandered everything. By the time I was finishing high school, he had gotten to this place that he was selling things in the house. If you had any electronic, you hid it. If the TVs, you hid them. If my mom left the house and there was no one in the house, until today she has that fear. She has to hide her stuff, put them under lock and key in a room. Because chances are you will come home, the gas cylinder is missing. I remember she came home, the fridge was missing, and the person that bought her fridge was her friend. Oh, she was so sad. She left our house, you know, let me laugh. She left her house because the fridge was not there, went to complain to her friend and found her fridge in her friend's house. No. Oh, my mom. So she stopped. She didn't even complain to her friend. She came back to rant out on us. She was venting on us now. I went to Mama Nani's house. I wanted to tell her, your dad sold the fridge. And of course, now this is Kikuyu. Kikuyu is very sweet when someone is angry. And my mom was like, I found the fridge at the door. You know, her kitchen was not big enough to have the fridge because the fridge was huge. And so she had put it somewhere along the corridor for her living room. So ukiingia kwa mlango, you know, when you just get into the door, you can see the fridge was right there. And my mom was angry, my goodness. So that was my dad when I was in high school. I loved him still, but of course I was angry. Oh my God, I was at some point when I was in high school, I was angry at my dad. How could you have money, sell cars in thousands and hundreds of thousands, because they were good cars. A BMW back then was a really nice car. It still is. But then even now, if you get to buy an old BMW that is very well maintained, they are more expensive than actually buying the new models that we are having. And so Dad was, you just sold your first car. And I would think because you've just sold your first car, you still have two left. So at least you would still give me money, you know, pay school. But he couldn't. I was angry at my dad. For years, I won't lie. I won't tell you that I loved my dad then as we are not, as we are now, it's not the same way we were back then. And so I hated my dad because I could not understand how a whole human being, in being named a dad, you know, you would look at your children at home because of school fees and you have money in your pocket. And my dad never paid school fees at all, even then. And I was bitter, I was angry, I was hurt, I was a teenager. So you can imagine all of those emotions. And then I have my mother to deal with. My brothers, sometimes I am between two brothers. Sometimes they would be so angry that Sasa, this middle one, I would get it. Because now they can't beat the smaller ones. So me who is in between them, they would be beating me up, come tell my mom, that I'm the one who was wrong, and she would continue the beating, you know. I'm telling you, I'll speak about my beating all the way through because I was beaten. So I started working in that same environment. We had to survive. We were on survival mode. I started working. I remember I tried working as a house girl when I was in Form 4. I worked, one of our neighbors, we were surrounded by wealthy neighbors, because remember at some point we were not doing badly ourselves. So the people who had built homes around us, ours wasn't a mansionette, it was a bungalow, but it was a nice house. And we were surrounded by a lot of people who had mansions. So one of them, of course, noticed I was home a lot. So they came, talk to my mom, my sister is looking for a house girl. She lives, I don't even remember where she was living. The daughter lives in the UK and had brought her 2-year-old boy to be taken care of by her mom. And so I had to go take care of the baby. I'm telling you, this whole business, people who mistreat house girls, I don't get you. I don't get you at all. Yeah, because you forget you also had a life, you forget you have children, you forget that life can turn around, and one moment you're the one who is employing a house girl, the next moment you'll be looking for work as a house girl. Life can turn around, let me tell you, life can turn around. So this one, she had a very beautiful house in a very beautiful estate. But when I went to work for her, she was building an extension to her house. It was not finished. There were there were window panes, but the glasses were not there. So it was completely just the metal that holds the glass. And she told me that's where I would sleep. So it's windy. Typically we can say there were no windows. There was no door. And it was an extension from her kitchen now to, of course, what she was building for a house girl. And it was unfinished, and it was cement. You know how cold cement can be and how it smells when it's not dried up. And I stayed there for 5 days. I wake up at 5 a.m. Let me make you laugh. I didn't know how to wash clothes for children. I know I have said I have small siblings that I have typically had to raise, but my mom would wash their clothes, and my aunt, who lived with us for a long time, my mom would wash the nappies and all of those things. So here I am, Miss Kumoja, I took the nappies, went to do this for them in the toilet to remove poop, and the lady was looking at me wondering, okay, why you don't know how to wash napkins? But she was horrible. She was a bad boss. And I one day I was like, I know my life. By the way, I have always had this sense of being a very, the Bible in Peter calls us royalty. And I have always known that I am a royal, the Bible says royal priesthood. And I have always known that I am not like a small person. I have always desired to, when I was growing up, by the way, at least we had a TV. So I would watch a lot of royalty programs, and I knew how the queen carries herself, how the duchess, they carry themselves. I would watch a lot of those. I remember watching the wedding for Kate Middleton and the husband, Prince Williams, I think, so I knew how I ought to carry myself, and I always had this regard. I knew who I was, and I would not allow anyone to treat me anything less than that. So when I went to work for this lady, and she mishandled me, wake up at 5 a.m., do all the cleaning, sleep late, sleep after 10 p.m. I'm telling you, she told me she would tell me that even if I am done with the work, with the house chores, and it's maybe 10 p.m. and she's not asleep, I am not allowed to sleep until she goes to sleep. I stay in the kitchen until she has gone to sleep. When she switches off her lights, then I can go to bed. Because she was like, maybe I might need something. Yeah, who am I supposed to go make it for myself? And I was like, that woman was nasty. So, long story short, that whole story I have told you only survived for 5 days. I know I'm talking like it's a month or something. I only survived in that job for 5 days. I said I'm never again going to work for a nanny, as a nanny again. That woman was nasty. So after 5 days, I went back home. And I told my mother, of course I was not paid. I was only given transport to go back home. And so I went back home and I told my mom, we will make it work, all of us here. But me working as a house girl, I'm not trying that again. And it was tough. Oh my goodness, it was tough. And my big brother, let me give you a story about my big brother. Mind you that this time we were home with my big brother because both of us were in high school, and both of us, nobody was willing to pay our high school fee. So my brother would leave early in the morning and say he's going to work. We didn't know what he was doing. So we were all doing casual work, whatever you can do to get like 200 shillings, at least come home. We know that day there was dinner. I'm telling you, we have drunk white porridge with no sugar. We have drunk white porridge because the only flour that we had in the house was maize, because back then you could, kusiagaunga, I don't know what you call it in English. Yeah, whatever you call maize flour. Yeah, that is all we had. And so it was dinner, it was lunch. The way people sometimes make fun that when things are tough, make ugali and then make porridge and drink them together. My friend, some of us have done it practically and it works. Yeah, so some of you just use it as a joke there, that if you don't have skuma, make ugali and make porridge. Yeah, it works. Practically, I know it works. So at least you have something solid and something liquid. That is the point. So my brother would leave the house and say he's gone for his hustle, and I would be left if I don't have a hustle that day. By that time, my siblings were a little bigger, so I used to wash clothes for everybody. I'm telling you, those years of not being in school, I know some of you may relate, because where you turn to be a house girl, you become the house girl of the house. I was the house girl of my house. We wake up in the morning, I have to take breakfast. At least the kids were in a public school, so they didn't need much. Like, they had to go to school, it's public. And we paid very little back then, And so I have to get up, make sure they go to school. I really felt bad because I felt like, this house girl business in my own house is not working good. And it started eating me up. And I remember by the time I was doing my Form 4, I think I had tried suicide maybe like 3 times. And one time I remember my big brother came home. I was holding a bread knife. And I was, back then we would watch Oga movies. Oga movies can teach you how to commit suicide. Oh my God, these people, they don't do it for real, but they can give you a lesson or two. And I'm not saying it's a good thing. We shall live and not die. Even for you who is thinking about suicide, you shall live and not die. There is life. I know it's tough, but there is life. Now I can laugh. Now you can picture yourself on my seat. One day you'll be the one laughing and telling your story. So suicide should not be an option, but sadly it's an option that we consider. And if it happens to be something that you have considered, I would want to tell you that there is life even beyond what you're going through. There is life after what you're going through. There is always an after. You won't always be in that situation. You won't always be in that space where nothing seems to be working. You won't always be in that space. Some of you are working as house girls, and it's not because you want to. Some of you are doing menial jobs, and it's not because you want to. You get up and go to industrial area, and it's not a place that you feel you would want to work. But because of how life has handled you, that's the only thing that you can get to do. Remember, some of us have been in your shoes, and I can now sit on this other side and tell you that there is life beyond what you're going through. Some of you are having to deal with a lot of hatred, a lot of bitterness because of how life has handled you and because how people have handled you, because we have to just stop saying life. It's people, how people have handled you in a mean way, and you have a lot of bitterness and anger towards people and towards life and towards yourself, because sometimes you feel like what has happened to you, you allowed it. If I was not in this space, this would not have happened. If I had not brought this person this close, they would not have hurt me in this manner. But you need to understand that it happened. It happened. You cannot reverse that. What you can do is take control of your life at this point, and just decide that this is where I am. This is how things have been. Yes, I am in pain, I am hurting, I am bitter, and I am angry towards this person. But decide that I am better than this. I would look at myself because of how my dad was, how my mom was, how things were. I hated them, that is for sure, I won't lie. I was bitter about it, I was angry. By the time I am getting to be suicidal, you can imagine the many things that had gone through my mind. You can imagine how I felt that at that point I could not handle life anymore. That surely if this is all there is to life, then what is the need of living? You don't want to be a teenager, speaking of myself now, in the situation that I was, and when I replayed my situation in my mind, to me, I knew that is all there was to life. I could not see beyond it. I knew this is all there is to life. It's just pain, just anger, just, being treated as if you are nothing, I knew that is all there was to life. And so being suicidal for me was actually, I felt like it was a benefit to humanity. Who will know? Who will even, I didn't even think that my parents would feel the pain of my death. They didn't love me. Yeah, at least that is what I thought. They didn't love me. So my dying would really be of benefit to them, and it is not a pain that they would feel. And that is a lie of the enemy, because I do not think that is true. And I tried suicide 3 times, and I remember my big brother coming and found me with a knife in the kitchen. He was like, "What do you want to do with the knife?" And now he's asking me in Swahili and Kikuyu, "What do you want? What are you doing with that knife? What do you want to do?" Because he honestly wanted to stab myself. And I strategically, of course, after watching the Oga movies, I knew where to stab, And while I was trying to do that, my brother was like, I just looked at him and I pretended I wanted to do something, because I think I was washing dishes, and the knife, of course, was part of the package. And I looked at him and I told him, "No, nothing, I'm just doing dishes." And I knew he interrupted me. And now, of course, because I am wiser now, I know it was of God. I am happy that God strategically placed him in a place that I did not do myself harm. And now when I sit now and think about it, I am happy that that I did not commit suicide. That's why I can strongly and from this place tell you that there is more to life than what you're going through. Some of the things I'm telling you now, my mom will find out when she watches the show. Some of my siblings will find out things like this because I have not been able to tell them. I have grown up trying to be this strong person because I'm the second born, I'm the first born of girls. Of course I'm supposed to be strong. That's how I've been taught. You don't show your younger siblings, and it's most of us, because I have met people who feel that they cannot be vulnerable to their siblings because they are the eldest. I was watching a clip on Instagram, and it was speaking of what happens to the firstborn girls. And some of us that is what we think we should do, because we are the firstborns and we are the eldest of girls, or we are whatever we are. We need to be strong for this other one, so we can't be vulnerable. And that is who I was back then. Nobody knew I was trying to commit suicide, and I did it 3 times. 3 times. Up to that point of high school. There are I told you I have a story. There are other times I have tried in the future, but after that one time I did not. So that was me in high school. And some of us, that goes of course to tell you college was a no-no for me. Yeah, not because I didn't want to go to college, but the funds were not there. So sometimes I sit like this and someone is like, send me your CV, and I'm looking at my producer because he asked for it. And sometimes I sit and I'm thinking, okay, so what am I finished, my goodness, hey, this is 2024. I finished high school in 2004. This is I am old. This is 2 decades. I finished high school 2 decades ago. And you can imagine if I have not added any certificates in between, and then someone is asking you for the CV. I am wondering, so what am I supposed to give you? The high school certificate is no longer relevant to whoever will see it. It is irrelevant. 20 years down the line, who cares whether you finished high school? With no other certificate and doing job applications, it's hard. It's hard. And I'm looking at you there, you're watching me, and maybe you're thinking, where, Diana, this is me. Me at Asina, I don't have a high school certificate. You are good. Yeah, you are doing better, you have a high school certificate. I have none. And it's years and years down the line, and you're wondering where? So how do people do job applications with no college degree, no college certificate, no college diploma? Where do you start? And that is me now. Yeah, that is me now. Yeah, that is me now. And so now I have to retrace my steps. Going back now, that I finished high school and didn't do so well. Of course, that life had to continue to 2005. 2005, what else can you do? Go back to doing the casual jobs, go back to doing the menial jobs, wash people's clothes. I can't tell you how many times it crossed my mind. Maybe being married is a good idea. But I have always had this thing in me that always told me, no, you are more than that. And I know you may be watching me, and life is tough. Things have not been easy for you. You want to, start doing something that is lesser than you, but something holds you back because you keep thinking, no, I am better than this. No, there must be something better than this out there. There must be a version of me that is better than this. And that is, imagine, I was not even saved back then. I was not. I grew up in church, but all the way through high school up to Form 4, I was not saved. I got saved in 2004, May. But all this time, I knew there was something. I knew there was something more to me. I knew there was something better. I couldn't put my hands on it. I could not put my thoughts on it. The same way you may not be able to put your thoughts on whatever it is that you feel. My life can be something better than this. And so as I did it, as I progressed, I knew things are thick, things are tough. I prefer death. I prefer death than life. A lot of times I'd preferred to die than to be alive, But when I sat down in my quietness, I knew there was more to life. I knew there was more. And you may be sitting there and you're thinking, my goodness, with all that life has been up to this minute, death sounds better, but I can sit on this other end and tell you, no, it may sound better, but it is not. There is always something good on this other side. There's a better version of you. The same thing you keep sensing within yourself, there is more to life than what is going on around you or what is going on within you. It's because it's true. It is true. There is something better than that. So I got saved in 2004 in Form 4 in May. A friend of ours we were hosting, amazingly, in all the situations that we were in, we still had people that were coming to stay with us because they felt our environment was better than theirs. And I would wonder, what do you mean? With all this chaos going on in our home, you think our house is better than theirs? Because most of them sometimes didn't have food to eat. At least they will come to our house and we have eaten githeri, maize and beans. We ate that. I'm telling you, we ate maize and beans. Hey. Yeah, we ate maize and beans. And there is this big banana that grows in Uganda that is very long. That thing can grow long. I think it's almost my height. But when you cook it, it is tasteless and it looks black. And I don't know where my mother got it and planted it. My mom would rejoice when it grows because she knew for the next 1 week, I'm not thinking about food. And we would eat a banana. You would eat it boiled for breakfast. You would eat it for lunch. You cook it, and when you cook it, it doesn't fully cook. It's still very hard. It's still like eating maize. It's like eating maize. My God, my mom would rejoice over that banana. I need to remind her and I look for it and buy it and give her to plant. And tell her never feed us. This is for the cow, never feed us. We ate it growing up enough. This one, I have bought it for the cows. Because my mom, oh my God, we would see that banana growing. And you can tell when this thing that, I don't know what you call it, in Kikuyu we call it gishogoru, I don't know what you call it, this purple thing that grows when the banana is growing. When it falls down, then that thing is fully grown. And my mom would wait when it falls down. We would be standing outside looking at it and saying, wow, it is time. And we would, oh my God, we would eat that banana. And I'm telling you, sometimes we would throw it in the toilet. We had a pit latrine. Sometimes we would throw it in the pit and tell her it is finished. It is finished, until at some point she was counting how many layers they were. So she would know when we cook it to this point, these are how many layers are left. These are how many days we have food. And my goodness. So we ate those bananas. And so some friends would come and they would be like, they can stay at our house because they felt that at least the bananas are there, the githeri is there, And this specific time, this friend of ours, his name is Simon, he came and said, I have found this church. It's for young people and they play really good music. And that is how we got introduced into Jubilee Christian Church Ngara. And the first day that I went is the first day I went in May of 2004. That's the day I got saved. We were sitting at the overflow tent, but I can't tell you how I moved from the overflow tent to the pulpit there in front. But I got saved that day, and I thank God. Today I thank God. I thank God I got saved that day. That salvation has saved my life. Salvation is indeed salvation. Some of you may think salvation is just getting saved to go to heaven. But some of us, we know that salvation is salvation. Salvation saved me. It saved my life. And after that, of course, you would think, back then we would think that getting saved, things get easier. But that was 2004. It did not get easy. I still had my issues, like I have said. 2005, I still had to do my casual work. I have gone to work for single men that were like, she makes a good wife. Me, I don't know how to settle for less, by the way, until today. Even if I am in need, I don't know how to settle for less. I don't know. I struggle to live a lesser life than I know that I should. And of course, it has landed me in trouble here and there. And I will share but I don't know how to live less of who God has made me. And that is because my journey has been a journey of discovery. As much as these evil and bad things were happening to me, it was still a journey of discovery. And if you were to look keenly over your life, it may look like all these evil and bad things have happened to you, but when you look closely, you have discovered who you are, you have discovered what you stand for, you have discovered what is good, you have discovered what is right in God, you have discovered your place in God. It's still a journey of discovery. Painful one, but a journey of discovery. And so 2006, I met someone who I now in church, JC Singara. He was serving in the security department, and we met, and he was opening an organization, and he was like, we became really tight. We were, until today. Let me fast forward. I was married and my husband passed away, and I'll give you that story. So today when I go home to my mom and she hears that I've met this person, she's like, you refused for me to eat his goats. I'm telling you, my mother is on my case. She thinks that was the person that God had ordained for me to get married to. And that, especially now that I'm single, my mom thinks, you are refusing. And he's single, by the way. My mom thinks, you are refusing for me to eat his goats. But as I will go forward in life to tell you the story, you will learn that you don't just do things because they look good. You don't make decisions because they look right. And when I will share something here that I probably haven't shared with anyone, as I get to the point of telling you about my marriage. But I don't just make decisions now because they look good, because they look right, because they are prospective. I can't tell you how many opportunities to go abroad I have turned down because the Lord said no. And I will turn down and I'm struggling. So people will be looking at me and they're asking, people are fighting to go into these places and you're saying no. You know, like you have the last one, I literally had a visa handed and you're like, you say no, and you're like, because I have learned it's not that all that glitters is not gold, and grass is not always greener on the other side. You know, I need to find out what is underneath it that is making it so green and not on my other side. And maybe I can fix my side and make mine greener as well. You know, so I met this person in 2006. They were opening a foundation, actually. And they hired me as their personal assistant and receptionist. For me, that was a ticket out of hell. Yeah, it's like someone gave me a ticket out of hell. One-way ticket out of hell. Because that is what home was. It had been for a long time. You'd think I would have adjusted. You can be a me witness if you're watching and your life has been like mine. You don't adjust to these things. You always hope they get easier. So when he gave me the job, my first salary, in 2006, earning 25,000 shillings, that was a lot of money. That was a lot of money for me. And not only I would get bonuses, you know, because he was my friend. So he would drive to our house. He knew when it was chaotic at home. Sometimes he would just come, and he's the one who bought me my first phone. You know, he would come and he would, he's been a very good friend, by the way, up to date. And he would come and he would be like, tonight it looks chaotic in your house. We will go for drives at night. He was living in, I was living in my middle class family which had turned poor, and he was living in Runda back then. That is where his home is until today, his parents' home. And he would come and he would be like, this is how bad it is. We are going for dinner at my house. So we would go for dinner at their house in Runda, stay there. Maybe he would drop me back late, and I would just come home to sleep. And my mom knew him, so they allowed him to be coming over. And when I was first paid, I left my mother's house, as in, like, you know, and we didn't have anything, so I didn't even have many clothes to pick. I remembered I had purchased a few suits because our office was in Lavington. I had a few suits. I would look a bit glamorous, you know. I work in Lavington, yeah, right? So I would look a bit glamorous. And so when I got my first job, I moved from my mother's house to Zimmerman. I could not wait. To live in my own house with my own rules, I could not wait. And so moving into Zimmerman, I was in Zimmerman, that was year 2006. I met some, because of the nature of our work, I remember that time, oh my goodness, I got an opportunity to work with the then VP, I think his name was Mudi Awori, the late now. And I remember I moved out, went to live in Zimmerman. I had some colleagues who were girls. We decided instead of living in Zimmerman in a small house, you live in a small house, I live in a small house. They were sisters, they lived in a small house. Why don't we just look for a house? And we went to Kasarani Isipe, which then they were just building, and it was a posh estate. So we got a very nice 2-bedroom house there. And they got one room, of course, because they were sisters, and I got the other. But then with time I discovered they were very immoral, in the sense that they would do anything for money, sleep with whoever for money. And because of the nature of our work, we were meeting very prominent people. And because the foundation my friend had started did not start small, he started very huge. So the people that we were dealing with were prominent. We would meet MPs, we would meet government officials. Like I mentioned, we were working with the office of the VP. And they started becoming fishy, and I knew they almost introduced me to the fishiness. You know, I went out with a date with, I won't say who, but it was a very prominent person then, until I discovered they were married, and I was like, oh my God. I remember my brother, he picked me up in town one day in a very nice black car. And you know, coming from where I was coming from, getting picked up in a very nice black car. Of course, that was nice. I felt very nice as a girl, you know. And I remember my brother escorted me to where the guy was. And my brother, after that, his name is Dennis, he wrote me this huge email and told me, are you now going out with sugar daddies? What is this? So this shopping that you have been bringing for us in the house, it is these people that, oh my goodness. And I had to take time and explain to him, by the way, he's not, I even defended him. This one is not married, until I discovered he was, you know. But as I discovered that he was married, I thank God I discovered early enough. So I cut ties with him, and I cut ties with my friends. We were still working in the same office, but I wanted to leave. I didn't want to live with the same people. So I would pause and say that with time I have discovered that along the journey, as tough as it was, God has protected me a lot. There has been a lot of places that God protected me, and I didn't think he was protecting me. Because remember, I got saved in 2004, but my seriousness was not there. I was not serious with salvation. I was in and out of church, you know. Of course, I could not afford to be coming to Ngara all the time. There was no money, there was no transport, and I was not committed to God. And at the same time, he still protected me in some sense. I still had, not just knowing that there is better for me, there was also this other bit that I knew I did not want to be an immoral person. I knew I did not want to be this person that is, you are not here, you are not there, you have no direction for your life. I knew I was a very peculiar person. And how I knew that, it's still a mystery to me. Of course it was God, but it's still a mystery how I knew that. And so we cut ties. I moved out of our very nice apartment. It was a very nice 2-bedroom apartment. I'm telling you, those days you would get a tiled apartment. In the early 2000s, tiles were not the thing. They were just becoming the thing back then. So if you got a house with tiles, you are in front. You're very in front. So we had a very good house. And I could not imagine going back to my mother's house. I could not imagine. I would go home with shopping, and for once I felt like, because I was able to do some shopping for them, I felt like my mom was treating me with respect. I felt like, because now I seem to have made it in some sense, I have some shillings in my pocket. I can go home and tell my mom, you're shopping and this is pocket money. You know, I felt like now she's giving me respect, until I didn't have it anymore and we went back to the roughness, you know. But I could not imagine going back to my house. So what I did that time, I had a very good friend. His name was Steve, and he was a pharmacist. he was doing very well as a pharmacist, and he was living in Zimmerman. So I told him the situation of how things were. This is actually what happened first was after I moved from Kasarani, Isipe, I went to another friend's house who was living in Zimmerman in a bedsitter, and she told me, no, you don't need to go back home. She knew how our home was because she would frequently visit our home, and she told me, come stay with me. And I went to stay there, but that girl was mishandling me. My God, hi, as much as I was not practicing Christianity to the fullest, she was, she would go out with anybody and sleep with anything, you know. And of course it didn't sit well with me. I always had resentment when it comes to the bit of sleeping with anyone and anything. I could not do that. I have never understood. Now I understand, but back then I never understood why I had such resentment, that if you looked at me in a certain way, I was like, you know, when men just see women as a sex object. And for me it would, I'm telling you, I have grown now to be very slow to anger and to be very slow with my words. Back then I was not very slow to anger, I was very fast with my words. And I will tell you as it is, ask my friends who know me from back then. They will sometimes remind me, well, Diana, you were harsh. If you were a guy and you wanted to ask me out, I'm telling you, you would replay that conversation in your head, how you will ask me, how I will answer you, how I will look. And if you do not like the response I give you in your thoughts, you don't ask me, because chances are the response will be worse. So people didn't ask me out a lot. I was a tough bean to crack. They didn't ask me out. Oh, maybe that is replaying until now. They didn't ask me. I was tough on men. But you see, you can see the dad I grew up with, see the home I grew up. So how was I supposed to love men? You know, not love men per se, but at least be compassionate towards men. There was no way. So this friend of mine eventually kicked me out. And she told me, you leave my house, you cannot be telling me how to live. You leave my house. And the day she kicked me out, the adjacent apartment was where my friend Steve was living, and he was a really good friend of mine. We would spend hours and hours at night when we are talking. Sometimes I would go into his house. We would be talking into the wee hours of the night. I would sleep on the couch. He would go to his room and sleep. And you know, he would wake up, go to work in the morning, leave, make sure there's breakfast in the house for me if I am not going to work. And he was a good friend. And then my friend told me back then, he told me, if you cannot live with if your friend has kicked you out and you don't want to go back to your parents' house, you can come stay with me. And here, at least with my friend, I was contributing rent, half rent. She pays her half of the bills, I pay my half of the bills. So he was like, here, I won't ask you any bill, just make sure, I just want you to be happy and safe. And he was my friend, so I knew he meant no harm. But where? Boy, was I wrong. I was wrong. This person turned out to be something totally different than what I was, the male enigma. I heard someone use that word somewhere. Yeah, so he turned out to be quite something different, and what transpired after was something pretty sad. I could not even believe myself. And it was quite actually very heartbreaking, because it made my life take another negative turn that I never would have thought that it would take. And I am going to tell you all about it in my next episode. So please make sure that you follow, you like, and you subscribe, share with your friends, and I will be sure you will be blessed when you get to hear what the next phase of my life turned out to be like. So I have been your host, Diana Gathoni, and this is Living Free with, of course, me, Diana.
Watch part 3 of this remarkable testimony, only on the next episode of Living Free with Diana.